want to talk to you about something called the unscripted skill set today. So I'll take you a little through my journey of what got me here and what are a couple of things that I did. So 3 months before my graduation, when I was somebody like you sitting in an engineering college, I thought my life was very sorted because I was very close to getting my degree, did internship with a lot of good organizations that had big names. I also had an offer from my dream organization. So in my head, I followed all rules. I cleared all tests. I was all set to go conquer the world. And then life happened. Now, what happened fundamentally was I got my offer letter which said, it's going to take me a year to go join this organization because that's what the date of joining on that letter said. I was really upset, staring at that document endlessly. Fundamentally, I had no plan B. I was all sorted to go join this org. But now I had to figure out what to do. And the question I had in my head was, why didn't anyone teach me how to handle a situation like this? I knew how to solve every problem, but the problem on my hand. So the question for all of you to think is this: what if the most important skills that you need for your future are actually not part of your syllabus, right? The world is changing around us way too quickly than we can imagine, right? Some under your control, a lot not under your control. Things like automation, AI, technology disruption is one part of the story, but the way economy is changing around us, the geopolitical situation around us, those are things none of us have control over, right? So if we need to navigate a world where we broadly don't have control over, we do need the unscripted skill set to move forward, right? Now, what is the unscripted skill set? So I would call a combination of skills put together to be that skill set. They're intertwined because they need to be intertwined in some sense, right? Adaptability, resilience, continuous learning actually when nobody is grading you any longer or is measuring you for your learning, right? And lastly, critical thinking in the most uncertain situations. So let's take a look at what each of these mean to us and what they stand, right? Just for all of our understanding. So adaptability is how quickly are you able to make changes and move forward based on your situation. We learn a lot from nature. So the best form of adaptability is water, right? It can form ice, it can form steam, it can also be in its original state of being a liquid state, right? The next is resilience. All of us have something big or small going on in lives in terms of difficulty, but how quickly can you bounce back from that difficulty is the question that you need to ask yourselves, right? The third is continuous learning. I'm sure a lot of us as kids, we had numerous hobbies. How many of us pursued those relentlessly to form some form of expertise in it, right? Over a course of period, we would have dropped a lot of them, and today our hobbies broadly would maybe include reading books, listening to music, but ask yourself, are they really hobbies? You would have been an extremely great sports person, a sport that you liked playing, or somebody who learned music or learned to play an instrument, or somebody who was sketching. So have you learned to pursue that longer? Because we all like instant gratification, and that's not going to come instantaneously, right? And the last is critical thinking. When you are in a situation that you didn't prepare for, how are you thinking about it? Are your emotions taking over you? Or are you able to deal with your emotions and then move to being more logical, right? So I'm going to talk through a couple of examples in each of these scenarios, right? So starting with adaptability. When I got my first job, and you know, like how a lot of organizations come to your campus and offer you openings, there was an organization that came to our campus and said, here are a set of openings, these are the places where we would want to place people, right, from a location perspective. But the point really was, I did dare tell the interviewer, if you don't give me a role closer to my home, I probably am not joining your organization. And I actually got through the interview, which was a total surprise. And I had to go to the corporate office, get trained for about 2-3 months because I was going to be miles apart away, running a team of maybe 300-400 people all by myself, being the HR for the team, where I really had no clue what I was going to do, right? But a week in that organization, I knew that I actually stopped myself from a great opportunity that was coming my way, telling the interviewer, if you don't give me a position closer home, I'm not going to join, right? What I told myself was it was too late for what I did. But what changed was, as I was speaking to a couple of seniors, understanding how this organization worked, I did understand that people are willing to listen to you. People are open enough in this organization. And then I started talking to a couple of decision makers saying, hey, listen, I know I did tell I want to stay closer home. That's still my first preference. But if there's something better that comes up from a career perspective, I am willing to look at it, right? Now, that was a lot of hard work. And the lesson that I learned was I shouldn't draw bigger boundaries at the beginning, looking at the smaller picture. Honestly, that was the most pivotal point in my career because when an opportunity showed up, I was actually given the option to say, hey, do you want to pick this up? And I said yes, right? So the lesson that I learned at that point of time was I said yes to something I had no clue of again, but this time I was very clear that I'm not going to draw bigger boundaries. I'm going to learn, figure out how to do it, not be resistant about change, because that was never part of my original plan. My original plan was stay at home, stay with my parents, they're going to take care of me, just go to the job, go in the morning, come back in the evening, and your life is so sorted. Now here I was going to take a leap to be in a completely different city, take care of myself all by my own, and also excel at work, right? It's not easy to adapt to change, but if you do not adapt, it's going to be difficult. Of course, you're seeing the stats back on the screen there that a major part of jobs that we are talking about that are yet to come are not even the names that we knew. I'm sure when you were probably in school, your high school, or maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we still weren't talking about a lot of roles that we have today. As simple as prompt engineering is a word that picked up over the last 2-3 years. This was not a word that even existed, right? So be adaptable and be open to what's coming your way. The second is resilience, right? We've heard a lot about it's okay to fail, it's okay to fall, and it's okay to fail and fall. But in a situation like that, are you somebody who is willing to still get up, find a solution, or just get bogged down by the problem statement? Right? Early in my career, I was responsible for sales teams that were spread across the country. And a part of my job was to calculate and pay incentives to these people. And I did that fairly well for a very long time. And one fine day when I was walking to office, I thought something was really off. And I went, sat down at my desk, looked at the file I sent to our finance team. Just to figure out, I attached the wrong file and sent it to them. It was really late because salaries had hit the account. So we're talking about 2,000 people roughly getting paid more or less than what they should have got paid. Reality check in corporate, that's not mistake, that's a blunder. Okay? And I was very clear that was going to be my last day in that office because nobody is going to say, oh, it's okay, no big deal. Right? I sat down, I didn't know what to do. In about half an hour, 40 minutes, my boss would anyway reach office. The only thing I knew was I should be the first one to tell him before he figured this out from anyone else. And I just created a version of that document which essentially had details of what should you work on, what should you pay, and what you need to sort of recover. I went to him and I did let him know of what happened. He didn't say me a word. He just called up a couple of people on the finance team and said, you're going to get 2 files. You need to pay additional for a set of people. There's a recovery that's going to be made, and we will make the recovery. Right? I went to my desk, finished all the work. But after a couple of days, I went back to him and said, that was a big error, but you didn't tell me a word. His answer actually got me thinking. He said, the problem was not about the error. Yes, it was a big error, but the fact that you found the error, worked through it quickly, and you found what the solution was, is why I didn't tell you anything. And for me, that is when I understood the word resilience. Okay? It is about, yeah, we all have different things going on, big or small. And this is not the only mistake that I did, right? But if I were to think of all the mistakes that I did, which is the biggest so far, this is the biggest so far. Right? So it's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to be in difficult situations, but are you getting bogged down so much by those difficulties, right? I'm sure somebody has financial situations, somebody has issues with maybe relationships going on at home or as an individual. But are we learning to put those aside, showing up as our best version in places where we need to show up, rather than saying, this is what happened to me is why I was not able to do what I was able to do. So don't get there and really focus on being more resilient. Okay. The next is continuous education. Right? So growing up, my dad always told this to me, that if you study well till your class 10, your life is sorted. Okay? And I thought that was very true, but I learned it later. That's not true. You have to keep learning forever in your life. Now, what I mean by learning forever in your life does not necessarily mean you're expected to sit in a classroom all the time and learn something new. You can always learn from your peers. You can learn from your mentors. You learn by listening. You learn by experiencing. Go do some work, right? It could be volunteering, or it could also be by doing something that you never did before. So the whole point is building on your technical skills, which would come to you either by reading books or attending classes or attending a workshop or by doing something very technical. But then there are also skills you need to build which are non-technical to grow in your career forward. Right? And also actually in life, just not career. Right? So we're talking about how do you collaborate with people who you've never met before. If 10 of you were to come together and deliver something as a project, how would you actually do that? Right? Now, these are some things that's important for you to reflect in terms of hobbies that are forgotten. It teaches you the skill of perseverance, right? It takes really long time for you to be able to pick up a skill, work through that skill, and master that skill. Now, really nobody is measuring you, or nobody is saying, hey, you were able to draw a house 10 years ago, and you're sketching like the best artist today. The only person to measure that for you is you. So focus on continuous learning. And the last is critical decision making. Right? There are a lot of times that we get overtaken by emotions. So think about an instance where there are 10 of you that probably want to go for an outing, and 2 of your friends always show up late. Are you going to wait for them? Or are you going to leave? So we're not even talking about big decisions of how many people we hire or how many people we want to keep or how do we upskill. Smaller things every day in your life that you do, right? Are you making decisions in a timely manner where you actually need to make those decisions? And if you're not, then start making decisions. This is one thing that I see with a lot of people, that it's not about we can't make decisions. We all can make decisions. We just don't want to make that decision, because if something goes wrong, then you have to take that accountability. So taking accountability is very, very important, and a part of it is making those decisions. I'll give you an example of a leader that I know. 25 years in his career, he was an engineering leader, managing engineering teams and delivering engineering projects. One fine morning, he was called and told that he needs to lead one of our SBUs and he needs to move to being a business leader. This person has no clue of how to run a business. It's not an easy decision to make for somebody who's delivered considered to be the best in his work for 25 years to move to a new skill, right? Now, what's the catch here, right? The role was new. That was the first time that role was created. There was no script of how that role was to be run or how that team was supposed to be run. It was not easy, but then he did take that call of saying, okay, let me pick this up. 3 months into that role, the way that team runs is the role model for a lot of teams across the organization. And if we were to look back, because for somebody who never ran business, if this person was really successful in establishing those teams, he did do something well. And all that he did was right decisions at the right time by managing emotions. So we're not saying throw your emotions aside, that's not going to happen, but process your emotions, move beyond that emotion, and then make those decisions, right? A lot of times what stops us is, how would this person feel? Will this person feel okay? Will this person feel not okay? So ask yourself the further questions of, what should I do to make this person feel okay, even if I'm making a decision that's not in favor of this person? Ask yourself those tough questions while you make those decisions, right? So all of you are today studying various subjects. That's part of your syllabus. You do need that because those open doors to your corporates. But beyond that, this is a skill set that you really need if you were to grow or ace in your career. It's not that you don't have these skills. Maybe it's unconscious for a couple of you, or some of you are intentional about how you want to get through this, right? So let's also quickly take a look at how do you develop these in case you want to really master the art of working through them, right? My personal favorite, and the first one, is a simple skill set journal, right? I'm sure you've heard a lot of journaling jargon before, but what I mean by a skill set journal is document somewhere for yourself about a challenging situation you had to deal with. What did you learn from it? Personally, what did you learn about yourself from it, right? It could just be that I am scared of saying no. It's just bringing it, calling it aloud of what are you doing well, and maybe what are some things that you need to build along the way. Careers and lives are marathon, right? So you don't have to build everything today, but do you even know what you have to build? Same way, do you know what you bring onto the table? And are you leveraging that enough? Because there are things you do well. The second is challenge yourself. Not everything is going to be simple, right? So if you're scared of speaking in front of a large set of audience, try it with a smaller group of friends. And then do it maybe for a smaller classroom session. Take a workshop for your friends, right? But try and move forward, right? And when I say try, it's not about saying, I am trying to do and I am not doing. So a mentor of mine once told me this very nice analogy about trying. So if you're ever on a flight or in a train or in a bus even for that matter, right? And they were to say, I am trying to land, I'm trying to apply the brake. Just think about what would happen to you, right? This doing it or not doing it. So in this scenario of challenging yourself and saying try is to do things, start small, and then get to the goal of where you really want to get to in the long term, right? The last one is seeking feedback, right? A lot of us seek feedback in terms of work. How was my work? How did I do? And how did that go on? But how many of you actually go seek feedback in terms of you as a person? How did you show up as an individual, right? How did our collaboration on an internship project feel for each other? Do you have the ability to give candid feedback to each other saying, hey, this is something that I appreciate what you bring onto the table, but I didn't like that you were very bossy in this situation. You probably should have consulted. So giving feedback and taking feedback is a little more complex than it sounds, but the more you do that, it really helps. There's an exercise I do every year for myself. A lot of leaders that I actually work with, I would go to all of them and say, what is one thing you wish I did more of this year that I didn't do, right? So I at least know what I didn't do that I should at least do for the next year. It's very important for you to know how you're being perceived, what people are thinking about you. A couple of exercises in this section are to say, what words would people use to describe you? If you're not in that room, what are they telling about you? Or what are the phrases that they're using to describe you as an individual? Right? So this is really the toolkit that I would say for you to build the unscripted skill set. And in case you haven't really written your stories yet, then go write your own bold stories. Thank you very much.